Hello, everyone. I chose to do my project on the Great Depression, and I try to do it from mostly the perspectives of the children during this time period because I feel like when the Great Depression is taught, it is mostly about the perspectives of adults and like workers who are really going through this, who are struggling financially, and kids really aren't taught about the perspectives of the children during this time. So my first source is this photo to the right that says it's a picture of a couple kids that say, "Why can't you give my dad a job?" And someone's kid doesn't starve. Why should we? So when introducing this photo to my students, I would not give them at first. I would not give them any like background information about it. I would just let them draw their own conclusions about the picture, and the class would come together and share. And then what just happened? Sorry. And then um as a class we would make a list of questions that the students have about it. And then after that, after we discuss questions we have and our inferences about it, I would begin the lesson about the Great Depression and explain what the photo represents. And then we would again discuss how the students would feel if they were the children in these photos and what they would do if it was their parents who didn't have a job like this little boy's. And then my second source is a video, and it's a video of adults who grew up during the Great Depression, and it's kind of how they look back at it as and how they felt during the time. Let me just take you to that. Oh, sorry.
My father did time. For one period, he was unemployed for such a long period of time that he got involved in a theft situation. He was sent away, did a year, trying to get some bread. It wasn't for himself, it was for us 5 kids. Put some bread on the table.
Without jobs and money, many families lost their homes. Unemployed people were evicted for non-payment of rent, and their possessions dumped into the street. Farmers, unable to sell their crops profitably, saw their land, their homes, their livestock, and their tools auctioned off when they failed to pay their mortgages to the bank. Hundreds of thousands of Americans became homeless. Some lived in hobo camps, others in shacks and tents. In boxcars on trains, or took to the open road.
I remember one year, we lived one place for 3 months. We didn't pay rent. The next month, we were evicted. Then we moved on to another place, got 3 months. We lived 3 different places in 1 year's span of time.
The other activity that we took part in was to help the people who were being evicted from their homes for non-payment of rent. We would organize the people on the block to take the furniture back.
During the Depression, the bootleggers came house to house to rent our garages to make whiskey. Of course, our neighbors, one of our neighbors said yes, so that we had the smell of whiskey all day long. And my father would not rent it. He says, "No, I'm not renting my garage to anybody." And my uncle would live next door to us, and he didn't rent it either. But the other side, they had barrels of whiskey brewing all the time. The smell of yeast was all over the town. So then when they decided to get rid of them, they broke the barrels, came with hatchets and chopped everything. There was whiskey running all over the town. That's true.
Okay, so after showing after showing that video, we would discuss the video and I would define words for them like evicted, possessions, homeless, doing time, what doing time means, like mortgage, just so they have like a clear understanding of what these people are talking about in the video. And then we would also discuss, again, how the students would feel if they were like the children and they got evicted from several homes and they kept moving from home to home, how they would feel and like how that would affect everything in their lives, like how that would affect their schooling and like their friends, and like how they would feel if this happened like right now in present day. And then my third source, I would have these 4 pictures, and I would start off by giving them a T-chart with predictions on one side and facts on the other side. So before discussing the pictures, I would have the students, based off of what we've already talked about, I would have them kind of make guesses of what these pictures represent and what's going on in these pictures. So after that, we would again come into a group and talk about what our predictions are. And then after discussing that, I would explain that what's going on here is child labor. And the 4th picture, that's actually a picture of a school that closed at the time due to like lack of resources, lack of funding for the teachers and everything. And this was one of the factors that caused like children to start working in factories, and the fact that their families just did not have money at all, which led to this kind of child labor. And then I would have the students on the right side of the T-chart like jot down some of the facts that we learn when I'm introducing them to child labor and the idea of closing schools down and everything. And then I would want the students to really, again, step in the shoes of these kids. Like the idea of like, oh, not having school, that may be fun, but after you really like dive into this and realize, oh, these schools closed because there just wasn't enough money, and then the children had to go work in factories. So I'd really want the students to kind of like think about that and kind of understand how these children were feeling and how they would feel if they were in their shoes. And then my last source, I have these 2 pictures. One of them's, again, like 2 children on the street in the time of the Great Depression. And the picture on the right it was in the past couple years. It was actually in California. A picture of a mother begging with her children. So I would introduce the idea of like begging for money when you are like so deep into poverty that there's really no other option but to go out in the streets and beg. And first I would want the students to kind of guess when when both the pictures were taken, in hopes that they would see that there is a difference between them, like in the color and just like by the looks of everything. And I would want the discussion to come to the fact that even in 2015, 2017, like 2018 modern day, there are still families that are that far into poverty and who still have to beg for money. So I would lead the conversation to that. And so yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.